Greetings and welcome to another Eigenverse tutorial. And by now, you have created all sorts of objects and environments for your whatever project it is you're working on by following along with our series Low Poly Adventures in Houdini. And now it's time to add the final, most important element to your project by creating a character. And we're going to do so right here in Houdini. Now, most beginner tutorials I see on how to create a character in Houdini go something like this. Step 1, create the character in Maya. Step 2, you're done. There are several reasons why that answer is unsatisfactory to me. First of all, a lot of us here like the precision and proceduralism that Houdini affords you. And furthermore, Houdini is usually one of the last steps of your pipeline, usually just before you put it into Nuke or perhaps just before you put it into your engine for a video game. The more you can do in Houdini, sometimes, the better. And really, there's nothing holding Houdini back in this regard. To prove this to you, we're going to model the character and rig it in, hopefully, under 10 or 15 minutes here. So, let me crack my knuckles and let's get started. Enter a geocontainer, dive inside, and let's add a box. We're going to use the classical technique of box modeling this character. Unlock this for somebody who does that sometimes. Use the mouse here and make sure I'm selecting a face. And I'm going to select the bottom face of this face and I'm going to hit Tab, Poly Extrude. Now I'm going to drag this down here and inset it a little bit. And I'm basically going to do this over and over again a whole bunch of times. So it should still be selected, so I think I can do Tab, Poly Extrude, and then bring that down, and then inverse inset it, then Poly Extrude, and okay, there we go. We got the head and the torso. The other thing you're going to want to use most when modeling something like this, go into Polygon, find yourself the Edge Loop tool, and then you can just sort of drag the edge loop wherever you want it to go. I'm going to put one here for the arm. And then I'm going to put one... well, first of all, we want to put one down the middle. And the way I like to do that is just click anywhere here. And then up here, where it says is 0.2 or whatever, change that to 0.5. And whether or not you know why that's working, it works. We can do that here too, 0.5. And... usually you want your character to be facing down the Z-axis. If you hold space and B, you'll get a bunch of different views. Here's the front camera. So I'm going to add another edge loop right in here to give a little more definition in here. And all right, and just for good measure, I'm going to add a couple more here. One in here, and we'll also say that's 0.5, and one in here. Now I'm going to take my selection tool again, take these two by holding Shift, and do Tab, Poly Extrude, and we'll just do this for now. And then we'll go down here, and let's take these two right here, and do Tab, Poly Extrude. As you can see, we're pretty much already done creating our marvelous human here. Generally, you have something like, put something here, Poly Extrude. Do I really need to keep saying the word Poly Extrude? To create the hand over here, let's do an edge loop over here. Maybe another edge loop right there. Let's give it one for the elbow too, right about there. Maybe while we're at it, one for the knee. And then what I want to do is I actually want to select... actually, I'll put one here and divide this hand a bit. And then... where's a... alright. Select tool. Select this and this. I'm going to poly extrude that. And then I'm going to use these transformation tools down here to get... a little more control with transform extruded front, and let's just sort of translate it that way. As you can see, that's our little thumb. So yeah, there we go. There's our Houdini character. The other thing you want to do most of the time when modeling something with bilateral symmetry is some sort of combo down here to make sure that it's symmetrical. You can do that with a clip node. You can clip it, change it to be on the X direction by tapping 1 here and 0 here, and then hit a mirror node. This will be in the right direction by default if you've been putting your character in the correct direction. And make sure it's consolidate seam, and just in case for some reason that's not working, let's just drop a fuse. When in doubt, add a fuse node. So there we go. Then you spend the next 20 hours or so tweaking your character. Like, one thing I'm going to do right now is select all that, hit T for transform, and move this down. Maybe I'll move these knees to where they should be, and that's good enough for me. And we said we'd do a low poly character, but, well, I'll just subdivide this once. I think we can agree this is still low poly enough. And remember, you can hold space G to get a good view of it in all your views. Now, one thing you'll often be struggling with, whether you're doing this in Houdini or in Maya or whatever, is getting everything to sit on the ground. And it turns out there's several tricks to doing that in Houdini. I'm going to show you my favorite one, which is a little bit of a cheat code here. Type tab and hit point wrangle. Type this arcane magic word expression at p.y minus equals get bbox underscore min 0 dot y. And if you highlight that and view it, you'll see that everything is magically moved up to stand on the ground. What we've actually done, in case you're curious, is we have made sure that all the points are shifted up in the y direction based on how far down the lowest part is. It's important to get this sort of stuff out of the way before you start rigging, because it's kind of hard to change the model once you start rigging, which is what we're going to do right now. Now, most of the beginner tutorials I've seen as to how to rig a character in Houdini go something like this. Use the auto rig, and then that's it. But that's not really very insightful. What if you have a different sort of character? Like, what if your character has, I don't know, some extra appendage? Let's go in here and let's say our character has one horn. That's just like right here. Poly extrude that. Let's bring that out here and then transform it. Maybe inset it. And it's very important to you and your whole production team that this horn is also rigged. Well, there isn't a one horn function in the auto rig, at least not last time I checked. So let's just work on the basics of how to rig this from scratch. You want to go into the rigging tab, and then you're going to hit the bones tool. And you're going to spend most of your time in this bones tool when you're laying down bones. And one thing I like to do is make sure that I'm snapping to the grid using this to make everything nice and precise. The other thing you'll want to do is make sure you're naming these bones as you go along. So I'm going to, first thing we're going to do is we're going to write the character's left arm. So we're going to say L underscore arm. That's the character's left, not our left. And then we're going to draw it in here. You always want to make sure you're drawing in the plane in which the bone is deforming. The arm's going to kind of move like here, so we want to draw it in here. Let's draw it up by the shoulder here. And put that there, and put that there. I'll hit enter. And you see this one here didn't really go where we wanted it to go. So I'm going to just move it. But whenever you move a bone like that, you want to make sure that you always go in here and clean its transforms. So go to modify pre-transforms and clean transforms. Because if you don't do that, horrible, horrible, horrible things will happen. Now we'll do the same thing for the leg, but we want to do it in this plane since the leg will be moving this way. So let's zoom in on the leg here. And let's just go bones, up here by the hip, down to the knee, down to the ankle, and then up to the toe. Enter. Now I'm going to select all this, hit T, and use this view to move it into the right location. Whatever, that's close enough. And I misnamed them, so you can always go back in here and change their names in here. And if you remember, we moved these things around, so we have this weird transform here. So we're going to go select them and clean transform. So now we're going to do probably the most important part of the skeleton here, which is the spine. And later we're going to, everything is going to be pretty much parented to the spine, and the spine is going to be parented to the root. You'll see what I mean. So we're going to go up here and type root. We don't want it to be the left root, just the normal root. Where's the spine going to bend? Probably mostly in this direction. So let's create it in here. So we'll go in here and create the base of our spine, which will be by the hip. And then I like to have something more for the belly, and then for the chest, and then for the neck, and then for the head. And hit enter. Let's make sure that these last ones are named properly here. Actually, I don't know why I called it root. Let's call it spine. And then let's call these last ones what they actually are. And always remember to keep saving as you're working. All right, next we're going to add some branching paths. All right, so first we're going to add the thumb. And I think the thumb is going to move this way, so let's do it in the top view. That looks good. At least it looks good from the top view. Sometimes when you make a bone, you have to check the other views. It turns out when we made that thumb, it drew on the floor. So let's just grab it here and move it into position. And then you can say, all right, let's grab the root and hit R and rotate it downward. There we go. And then since we moved this so much, remember to select it and clean transform. In general, just keep hitting that button over and over and over again while you're rigging. And now finally for our all-important horn. The one that your character designer so insisted upon. I think the horn will move like this, so let's just do that. So let's talk briefly about what we created here. We created a whole bunch of bone chains. As you see, every time we started a new one, we got a root with null. And then under it, we got a whole bunch of bones. Now, secretly, there's a bunch of sort of hidden nodes in here that have to do with the pre-transforms, but this makes it easy to see what we're doing. Now remember, the nulls will change the location of the root, and as the nulls move, it'll move the subsequent bones. However, the nulls cannot control the geometry, the character here. Only the bones will change the character. However, if by moving a null you move a bone, you can then change the character that way too. By the way, let's name this the thumb. All right, so now what are we missing? Well, first of all, we're missing the whole right half of this character, and that is our left. Let's also label this left thumb root, left, and you're about to see why these L underscore are so important. So now we can take all of our left things, clean the transforms just for good measure. Well, first of all, let's connect them to the spine. This spine root is pretty much at the hips, so we can connect our leg root to that. This spine bone 3 is closest to our chest bone, so let's attach the arm to that. All right, now to create this branching path for the thumb, we want to attach it to, we want it to be somewhat attached to this hand bone here, but we don't want it to be at the end of the hand bone because we don't attach a thumb to a fingertip. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to right click and create a null. And we're going to call this null the hand root. First of all, we need to get this hand root at the base of the hand. So this bone happens to be where we want it to be. So what we're going to do is we're going to parent the hand root to that bone. And if you see, that slides this to the position that we want it to be. Next, we're going to say, we're going to check this, keep position when parenting, and then we're going to delete this. by hitting the delete key after selecting that path. Now we have just this hand. It happens to be floating in the right location. Next, we're actually going to parent this to the forearm. And since we had keep position when parenting, it's still in the right position. We can attach the thumb root to the hand root, and then we can also attach this bone here. And let's call this the left finger bone. And also remember to type L underscore. So why are we hitting L underscore everywhere? Well, you're just about to find out. First of all, let's highlight everything that we got so far and modified pre-transforms, clean transforms. Let's hit L to make it nice and laid out. And let's select all of our L underscore things. And hold shift here to select them all. And then we're going to go up here to modify and then hit mirror. And you see here it says new prefix R underscore, remove the old name up to underscore. And what has that done? Well, you see in here, looks like it's doing a pretty good job so far. So let's hit enter. And there we go. Now let's hit L so we can see everything again. And now you see we have our left stuff, and we also have our right stuff. And they're all named properly, and they all function properly. Now the last thing we have is our horn, which I believe is up here. And to do this, we're going to let's reiterate what we did earlier to create the splitting by creating a head root. So here we have the head bone, but let's create a null. Call this head root and parent it to the head bone. Then check key position when parenting. Then delete the connection, parent it to the neck bone, parent the head bone to the head root, and parent the horn root to the head root. And then let's hit L so we can see everything. Hold space G. And then let's just select everything, and once again, just for good measure, hit clean transform. Now we're almost done with the rig here, but there's one more thing that we should probably add, which is a proper root to this character. And that should be a null that we'll just call root, which should be at the center of the scene, which is where it happens to be by default. And yes, it should be right between the character's feet. Then we're just going to parent the spine root to this. I'm going to hit the usual thing of L space G, and then select everything, clean transforms. So now our rig is complete for our custom character, and if you try to animate it, nothing will happen because we have not applied it yet. So hit Control Z, make sure everything is the way you want it to be, and let's apply the rig. Go up here to the rigging tab and hit Capture Geometry. If you come from literally any other program, this is called skinning. But in Houdini, it's called capturing because Houdini is special. Now, select the geometry you wish to capture, as the blue text tells you to do, and then hit Enter. Now it says select the root of the capturing hierarchy. In this case, well, we might as well hit the thing called root, and then hit Enter. Now, if you select a bone and hit R, you will find that it deforms your character. Even our custom bone that we added for this horn that you won't find in any auto rig. Now, as you can see, it's doing something fun and interesting with the rest of the geometry as you move it. And that has to do with the way in which the geometry was captured. Most of your time during the rigging process will probably be spent painting the capture weights using these tools up here. But we won't go into those right now. They're pretty self-explanatory, or they might require a few hours of research on the documentation, either or. Rest assured, we will be back with a much more advanced tutorial in which we'll show everything that you'll need to know about character modeling and character rigging, character animation, and all those other things. But this already is enough to prototype poses to use in a storyboard, or even to export and use in Unreal as your own custom character. There it is. Isn't it adorable? It kind of looks like it has a giant thing lodged in its head, like in Metal Gear Solid 5 or something. Anyway, that should wrap up our introductory tutorial on character creation. And next up, we will revisit some of our earlier tutorials to make some more advanced things, and then finally start to put this in rendering engines, or game engines like Unreal, so that you can create a finished product all your own from start to finish using Houdini. Thank you very much for tuning in to this episode, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Until next time.